Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into something I bet is on a lot of your minds these days.
Yeah,
How to protect your retirement savings, with all the craziness happening in the economy.
for sure. A lot of people are worried about that.
We're going to specifically be looking at gold IRAs.
Okay.
Our source material for this deep dive is an article titled The Role of Gold IRAs in Economic Recession Planning for the Wealthy,
Interesting.
and is really focused on those strategies for people with, well, significant wealth.
Yeah, we're talking about folks with like $500,000 or more in assets.
So right off the bat, I want to be clear. This deep dive isn't about, liquidating everything and buying gold bars.
Yeah, no, not at all.
This is more about adding another layer of protection to your retirement plan.
Right, exactly. The core concept here is diversification. If
Yeah.
your entire portfolio is tied up in the stock market,
And then things take a downturn.
yeah, well, your retirement dreams could take a hit too.
I see, that makes sense.
Hmm.
So where does gold fit into all of this?
Well, I'm sure you've heard of it.
I mean, I know it's considered a safe haven asset, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure what makes it so different from, say, stocks or bonds.
That's a great question. So gold, its value isn't really directly connected to how companies are doing or government bonds. It's
Mhm.
more about its inherent properties, things like its scarcity, how durable it is, and its historical use as a form of currency.
Ah, I see. So even when the stock market is, volatile, gold tends to kind of hold its own.
Exactly. Think about it. Empires have come and gone. Paper currencies have, come and gone. But gold has always held its value. It's something tangible with a long history of stability.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the appeal,
Yeah.
but I'll be honest, I'm still a bit fuzzy on the whole gold IRA thing.
Sure.
What does it actually involve?
So a gold IRA is basically a self-directed IRA that lets you hold actual physical gold, not just, stocks or ETFs. It's part of your retirement savings.
So we're talking about like actual gold bars or coins being held somewhere safe.
Yeah, precisely. So you'd work with what's called a custodian.
Yeah.
They help you purchase gold that's been approved by the IRS, which means it has to be 99.5% pure or higher. And then they store it for you in a special depository.
So it's not like I can just like stash some gold coins under my mattress.
Uh-huh. No.
Okay, so that makes sense. Let's say I was interested in setting up a gold IRA. What would be the steps involved?
Well, the process is actually pretty straightforward. You would first choose a custodian, one that specializes in gold IRAs and has a good reputation.
Okay.
They'll walk you through the whole process from setting up the account, buying the gold, to storing it.
Okay.
And then you fund the account. You can do a rollover from an existing IRA or make direct contributions.
So it sounds like I wouldn't have to be, a financial whiz to get started.
Not at all. A good custodian handles all the technical stuff, make sure everything follows all the IRS rules.
That's reassuring. Okay, so the process seems manageable enough. But what about the benefits? Like, what makes a gold IRA more attractive than other retirement savings options?
There are a lot of key benefits that are outlined in the article that we should discuss. But maybe before we get into those, we should talk about the economic climate right now
Okay.
and why so many people are, looking at alternatives, things like gold.
Yeah, that sounds good. What's making people so nervous about traditional retirement planning right now? So we were about to dig into why people are looking beyond these like traditional retirement plans these days.
Yeah.
What's got folks on edge?
Well, there's definitely like a lot of uncertainty out there right now.
Yeah.
Inflation is still a concern for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It eats away at your savings, at your purchasing power,
For sure.
and then the stock market. Well, let's just say it hasn't been the smoothest ride lately.
It's definitely been a roller coaster.
Yeah,
Anyone who's looked at their 401k lately knows what I'm talking about.
exactly. And that volatility, it makes people nervous. Yeah.
Which makes sense, right? When your retirement is on the line, you want something that feels a bit more solid, something that's proven it can, handle the ups and downs.
Yeah, for sure. So that brings us back to gold. Our source article really highlights this idea of gold being a hedge against inflation.
Mm-hmm.
How does that actually work?
Well, it basically comes down to the fact that gold is a finite resource.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can just create more of it on a whim.
Yeah.
The supply doesn't go up and down as much as, say, printing paper money does.
Right.
And historically, when governments print more money, which leads to inflation, the price of gold tends to rise. It's like a seesaw.
Oh, okay. So it's almost like with gold, you can preserve your purchasing power even when the value of the dollar is, going down.
Exactly. It's not a sure thing, a guaranteed return or anything, but historically,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a way for people to maintain their wealth when the economy is kind of, shaky. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The article also mentions gold's performance during times when the market is volatile. I imagine that's pretty different from how stocks perform, right?
Yeah, it's a different story. Gold isn't really connected to company performance or, the overall economy, not in the same way stocks are.
Right.
So when the market dips, gold tends to stay pretty stable. Sometimes it even goes up in value. That's when investors get nervous and start looking for, safer places to put their money.
So it's not just about protection from inflation. It's about having an asset that won't totally freak out when everything else does.
That's the general idea. Obviously, any investment has some risk, gold included, but historically, it's done a pretty good job at holding steady in a crisis.
The gold just does its own thing. Doesn't really care what the rest of the market is up to.
Yeah, kind of. It doesn't always follow the same trends as other assets, which can make it a good addition to a diversified portfolio. Have a little bit of everything.
Makes sense. Okay, so we're getting a clearer picture of the potential benefits. Now, what about some of the concerns people tend to have about gold IRAs? I know the article mentions some of those myths. Are they really as complicated and expensive as people think?
Well, that's where having that trusted custodian really comes in. They can really help to simplify the process and help you make smart decisions.
Right, like those gold IRA concierges we were talking about. They handle all the confusing stuff and the paperwork. So it's not as overwhelming as it seems at first.
Exactly. And as for the cost, yeah, gold does have a price tag, but you don't have to buy a vault full of it to see the
It's
benefits.
more about strategically adding some gold to your plan, right?
Right.
Based on, how much risk you're comfortable with in your financial situation.
That's a great point. It's all about balance, finding what works for you.
Okay, and the last bit that comes up in the article is this fear of scams. Are gold IRAs actually more vulnerable to fraud than other investments?
Well, like with anything, you're going to have some bad actors out there. That doesn't mean the entire gold IRA world is shady.
Right. It's like saying you shouldn't drive a car because some people use them to commit crimes.
Uh-huh. Exactly. The key is to be smart, do your research.
Right.
Choosing a custodian that's been approved by the IRS, that's essential. Find a company that has a good track record, positive reviews from other investors, and fees that are clear and upfront.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to ask for references or even talk to a financial advisor. You got to make sure you're completely comfortable with the provider.
So it's all about doing your homework and choosing the right partners. Really, that's good advice for any investment.
Definitely. And speaking of choosing wisely, the article goes into some detail on things to look for when you're picking a gold IRA provider. There are a few key factors to consider.
Okay, let's hear them. What should people be keeping an eye out for? So we were talking about how to choose a gold IRA provider. What are some of the things people should be paying attention to?
Well, reputation is really important, You want a provider with a solid track record, positive customer reviews, and ideally some certifications, from the industry. Think of it like checking those online reviews before you book a hotel or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. You definitely you're working with someone you can trust,
Yeah,
especially when we're talking about your retirement money.
absolutely. And then fees, you got to look at fees carefully.
Mhm.
Some providers might have these hidden fees tucked away in there,
Yeah, nobody likes that.
or they charge just way more than others. Transparency is really important. You want to make sure they're being upfront with you about their fees.
So no sneaky charges when it comes to our investments. What else should people be thinking about?
Storage options are another big thing. We're talking about physical gold here, right? So it needs to be kept somewhere safe and secure in a depository that's, approved by the IRS.
Right, no hiding gold bars under our mattresses. So what about customer service?
Yeah, don't underestimate that. You want a provider who is going to be there for you. Answer your questions, whether they're, basic questions or something more complex.
So it's like having someone there to guide you through the whole gold IRA world, make the process as easy as possible.
Exactly. Picking the right provider can make a huge difference in your experience with a gold IRA.
Okay.
Speaking of experiences, our article actually includes a couple of case studies that I thought were interesting.
Oh, yeah. I always find that stories are a great way to make these things feel, a little more real.
For sure. So the first one's about this couple. They're in their early 60s, John and Mary. They were worried about inflation eating away at their savings.
Mm.
So they decided to diversify with a gold IRA.
So they were just looking for some way to protect their money from, losing value over time. That's a pretty common worry these days.
Definitely a common concern. And in their case, it was a smart move. Their gold holdings not only maintained their value when the market was volatile, but they actually saw an increase in value.
Oh, wow. So they got stability and some growth, too. That's a good outcome.
It really is. It just shows how gold can act as a buffer,
Yeah.
against inflation and those market fluctuations.
What about the second case study?
So the article also talks about this guy, Tom. He's a retiree in his 70s. He actually did really well during the 2008 financial crisis.
Oh, wow.
Part of the reason was his gold IRA. A lot of his other investments took a hit, but the gold, it stayed pretty stable,
That's a great example of how gold can be resilient even when times are tough.
for sure. Tom's story just shows how important diversification is, having at least some of your portfolio in something that's not connected to the stock market.
So both of these case studies really highlight that sense of security that can come with knowing some of your wealth is in something that has a history of, weathering those economic storms.
That's a key takeaway. It's about building a retirement plan that gives you growth, but also gives you that feeling of, safety and security.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into gold IRAs, what's the big takeaway you hope people are leaving with?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that a gold IRA can be a really valuable tool
Hmm.
for people who want to protect their wealth and diversify their savings, especially when the economy is uncertain.
But it's not a decision to just jump into, right?
Definitely not. It's really important to do your research, pick a provider you trust, and most importantly, talk to a financial advisor.
Someone who can help you look at your situation, your goals, and how much risk you're comfortable with. Figure out if a gold IRA is right for you.
Exactly. Not every investment strategy is right for everyone.
Well said. This has been a really interesting look at gold IRAs, and I think we've learned a lot today.
Yeah, I hope so. And hopefully this has given everyone a good starting point to, start their own research into gold IRAs.
And as always, keep learning and asking questions. Keep diving into those topics that are important for your financial future.
We'll be back to talk about more of them.
Until next time, everyone.